Today, me and my group members will discuss about the Sino-Japanese War which has happened between the Qing dynasty of the China and the Japan Empire in 1894. Let us start with discussing about the background of this war. And the background of the war can be divided into three aspects: the development of the Japan, China's situations, and international environment. The economic crisis which happened in the Japan has led to the external expansion of the overseas market. The economic crisis will led to loss in the national economy, especially during the capitalist war of the United States and the Britain. And the Japan suffers a heavy blow. Therefore, the country needs a foreign war to divert the social conflict and expand the overseas market to improve the economic status. Whereas the China situation during that time is under the Qing dynasty, which is very feudal, and the government is very poor. And the China also has suffered a long-term aggressions by the foreign powers, such as the Opium Wars with the Britons and also the France. And although the China during that time has a very large population, however, it has a very limited resource and a vast land. After the Sino-Japanese War, and the China and Japan has signed the Shimonoseki Treaty. By this treaty, the Japan used a large amount of the indemnities won from the treaty to develop its military and embark on the part of the foreign aggression. And this war also has accelerates the semi-colonizations of the China. Another point is the international environment. Since the 18th of September incident, the internal situation has undergone complex change. The Chinese government has pinned hope on League of Nations. However, it focused its energies on the European battlefield and failed to assist China. The Japan no longer has any scruples about the international community, and therefore the Japan has convened the developments and mutual associations of the fascist force in the world. The Japan has used his military actions and invaded another country. And after discussing about the background, now we have a look through about the time frame of the war. The course of the war has divided three aspects: the prelude, the Chinese resistance strategy, and the counter-attack stage. The prelude, the invasions of the Manchuria and the northern China. The Japan invaded Manchuria outright after the Mukden incident in September 1931, and the prepared state of Manchuria was established in 1932. And next, the Chinese resistance strategy. The first stage is the Lugo Bridge battle. The China is not prepared well and only has a little military industrial strength. And the second stage, the main Chinese objective to drag out of the war as long as possible in the war of attrition, thereby exhausting the Japanese resource while building on Chinese military capacity. The basis of the Chinese strategy before the entrance of the Western Alliance can be divided the several periods. The first period is at the Battle Lugo Bridge and until the end of the War of the Wuhan with the fall of the city. The second period is following the fall of the Wuhan and until before the Alliance Declarations War on the Japan. After we have a look through about the Chinese Renaissance strategy, now let us look at the counter-attack change. In 1942, the United Nations Declaration was signed, and the United States launched the Dolittle Raid at Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The Chinese army has launched a counter-offensive against the Japanese army in 1944, and at the 9th of August 1945, the Soviet Union renounced its non-aggression pact with Japan and attacked the Japanese in Manchuria. Finally, the Japanese Emperor Hirohito officially capitulated to the alliance on 15 August 1945. The surrender has brought on the battleship USS Missouri on the 2nd of September 1945, and this official surrender has marked the end of the colonizations against the China and the other foreign country, and also marks the end of the World War II. Now, let's look at the main actors or the main figures which involved in the Sino-Japanese War. There are a few military commanders. In the China, it's the Mao Zedong and the Jiang Jiechi, whereas in the Japan is Hirohito and Hideki Tojo. The Mao Zedong is the main founder and leader of the Communist Party of the China, while Jiang Jiechi is the president of the Whampoa Military Academy. The Hirohito is the 124th Emperor of Japan and Marshal of the Army and Navy. The Hirohito is a fascist, while the Hideki Tojo is the person who makes the official surrender, a representative persona of the Japanese militarism, and the 40th Prime Minister of the Japan. He is the one of the important criminals invaded China and launched the Pacific War. Now, let us make a compare between the military strength of the China and the Japan. So based on the data we found, it can be concluded that China's military weapons and the strength are less than the 1/10 of those of the Japan. Therefore, the Japan start the colonizations on the China, which is among the about 7 or 8 years. So after we analyze about the persons behind, so let us do some theoretical analysis behind this Sino-Japanese War. The cause of the war, the area are the small and lack the resource. So the economic crisis has severely affected Japan's survival and development in the war. According to the Morgenthau release survival principle, the Japan needs to focus on surviving in the international competition. Therefore, the Japan launch a war of aggression against China can be concluded is a typical of the realism. And the policy of the appeasement, the starting point is still the interest of the major power such as the Britain, the France, and the United States. And the essence of the war is to transfer the domestic conflict and seek more international power. The Britain and the France need to maintain their positions, but their strength does not allow it, and the appeasement to avoid war, and they need the strength to contain the Soviet Union. And besides that, the Japan seeks a higher international status. The Japan needs to transfer the domestic conflict and needs the strength to break the existing international system. And the Japan's military strength is very strong, and economy has been hit very hard. And the Japan will propose the distributions of the power to its advantage in accordance with its own interests. And this is the essence of the Japan's war of aggressions against China. And the 3 levels analyze the war of the resistance against Japanese aggression. Based on the individual level, the Mao Zedong scientifically analyzed and predicts China's political situation on its development trend brought on the unprotected war. The state level is the tension between China and the Japan has been very high during the anti-Japanese war. And systematic level, the China was the main battlefield of the Eastern Front in the World Anti-Fascist War, and China's victory forcefully support the anti-fascist war in Europe. A single stick can start a prairie fire. The China victory in the war of resistance against Japanese aggressions will be a protracted war rather than a quick victory. While in the Marxist view of the war can be divided into the economic root and the manpower of politics, the Marxism reveals that the antagonistic conflict, the material economic benefits is the most profound cause of the war, while Marxism holds the hemonism is the political main part of the war in the capitalist era. The two characteristics of the war are the violence and the group. The violence, the industrial are greatly enhanced the favors of the means of the war, especially in the production of the nuclear weapon. Some people believe that the non-violence or low-intensity welfare will become the basic trend of the future. While the group is the war is the organized violent confrontation among the social communities, such as the class and the political group of the nation state.